Welcome back to the Timeless Tales Library, where the world outside fades and a new story begins. I'm Oliver, your host, and tonight I'll be sharing a soothing tale to ease your mind and guide you gently towards sleep. The Timeless Tales Library is made possible by listeners like you. If you've found comfort here, please subscribe and help us continue creating these peaceful stories. As you settle in, comment below and let me know where you are in the world tonight, and share a place you dream of, a story taking you to perhaps the dusty aisles of an old bookstore, the quiet corners of a coastal lighthouse, a snow-blanketed cabin, or a silent, star-filled desert. Your ideas keep our little library glowing bright. In this gentle tale from our Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, Sleep Stories collection, Mary Lennox discovers a hidden corner of Misselthwaite Manor where golden marigolds bloom in impossible abundance, and the veil between worlds grows thin with love and remembrance. Let the soft rustle of petals and the warm glow of candlelight guide you into peaceful slumber. Now, take a deep breath and let your day's thoughts unravel. You are stepping into the Whispering Grove within the Timeless Tales Library. This hall is lined with shelves carved like ancient trees, their branches entwined overhead, glowing faintly. The books here murmur softly, like leaves in a breeze, each carrying secrets of faraway lands, forgotten dreams, and hidden adventures. Feel the support of your bed beneath you, grounding you as your mind wanders through this magical grove. Relax your jaw, your arms, your legs. Let the soft whispers of the library trees wrap you in calm. Walk slowly among the towering shelves. Let the stories of the grove flow into your mind, carrying you deeper into peace and gentle dreaming. The Secret Garden's A Day of the Dead sleep story, Mary's Marigold Garden. The autumn air at Misselthwaite Manor held a crispness that made Mary Lennox pull her woolen shawl closer as she wandered through the familiar corridors. It had been 3 years since she'd first arrived at her uncle's Yorkshire estate, 3 years since she'd discovered the secret garden that had changed everything. Now 16, she moved through the manor with the quiet confidence of someone who had found her place in the world. Yet tonight something felt different, as if the very walls were humming with an energy she couldn't quite name. The grandfather clock in the main hall chimed 9 times, its deep resonance echoing through the stone passages. Mary paused by the tall windows that looked out over the moors, watching as the last light of day painted the sky in shades of amber and rose. It was the 1st of November, and though Yorkshire knew nothing of the Mexican traditions her governess, Senora Martinez, had once whispered about during their Spanish lessons in India, Mary felt an inexplicable pull towards something sacred and beautiful. She had been thinking of her parents more often lately, not with the bitter resentment that had once consumed her, but with a gentle curiosity about who they might have been beyond her childhood memories of neglect. Perhaps it was the changing season, or perhaps it was simply that she had grown enough to hold space for complex feelings. But tonight she found herself wondering what her mother's laugh had sounded like, what flowers her father might have preferred in his garden. As these thoughts drifted through her mind like autumn leaves on the wind, Mary noticed something peculiar. There, at the end of the corridor she was walking down a passage she had explored countless times, was a door she had never seen before. It stood slightly ajar, and through the gap came the most extraordinary scent, marigolds in full bloom, rich and earthy and impossibly vibrant for November in Yorkshire. Mary approached the door slowly, her bare feet silent on the cold stone floor. The scent grew stronger with each step, accompanied now by something else, the faint sound of water trickling as if from a small fountain, and beneath that, so soft she might have imagined it, the distant sound of gentle laughter, warm and welcoming as summer rain. She pushed the door open wider and gasped. Beyond the threshold lay not another room of the manor, but a garden unlike any she had ever seen. The space seemed to exist in perpetual twilight, neither fully day nor night, with a sky the color of deep amethyst scattered with stars that pulsed gently like fireflies. Thousands upon thousands of marigolds carpeted the ground in waves of gold and orange, their petals glowing as if lit from within. Paper lanterns in jewel tones hung from branches of trees she didn't recognize, casting dancing shadows that moved like living things across the paths. Mary stepped through the doorway and felt the cool stone of the manor floor give way to soft earth beneath her feet. The air here was warm despite the season, carrying scents of copal incense, fresh bread, and flowers, always flowers. In the distance she could see what appeared to be a small pavilion or gazebo, its white columns wrapped in garlands of marigolds and flickering with the warm light of hundreds of candles. As she began to walk along the winding path through this impossible garden, Mary noticed that the marigolds seemed to part gently before her steps, creating a clear walkway that led toward the pavilion. The flowers swayed in a breeze that felt like the gentlest touch against her skin, and with each gust came whispers, not words exactly, but something that felt like voices filled with love and longing and joy. The path curved around a small pond where lily pads floated serenely, their surfaces dotted with floating candles that cast rippling reflections on the dark water. Wooden boats, each no larger than a child's toy, drifted slowly across the pond's surface. As Mary knelt to look closer, she saw that each boat carried a tiny cargo. Photographs so small she could barely make out the faces. Miniature bouquets of marigolds, little cakes decorated with sugar skulls no bigger than her thumbnail. She reached out to touch one of the boats, and as her finger made contact with the water, the most wonderful thing happened. The surface of the pond began to glow with a soft, pearl-like radiance, and in that glow, Mary saw faces, hundreds of them, thousands maybe, young and old, laughing and serious, all looking at her with such tenderness that tears sprang to her eyes. They were not frightening or sad, these faces in the water. Instead, they seemed to be saying hello, welcoming her to this place where memory and love took on physical form. Mary sat back on her heels, overwhelmed by the beauty of it all. As she watched, more boats appeared on the pond's surface, materializing from the gentle mist that rose from the water. Each carried its own small treasures, a letter folded into a paper airplane, a single rose, a child's drawing rendered in impossible miniature detail. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" came a soft voice from behind her. Mary turned to see a woman emerging from between the marigolds, though emerging wasn't quite right. she seemed to simply become visible, as if she had been there all along, waiting for Mary to notice her. The woman was perhaps her mother's age, with kind eyes and greying hair woven through with marigold petals. She wore a dress that seemed to be cut from twilight itself, deep purple fabric that shimmered with tiny points of light like distant stars. "I'm sorry," Mary said, rising to her feet. "I didn't mean to intrude. I found a door in the manor, and it led here, but I don't understand how that's possible." The woman smiled, and her smile was like the first warm day of spring. "Oh, my dear child, you haven't intruded at all. This garden exists for moments just like this, when someone needs to remember that love doesn't end with goodbye." She gestured toward the pavilion. "Would you like to see the rest? I have a feeling there's something here that's meant for you." Mary nodded, unable to speak past the sudden tightness in her throat. There was something about this woman that felt deeply familiar, though she was certain they had never met. Together, they walked along the marigold-lined path toward the glowing pavilion, their footsteps muffled by the soft petals that carpeted the ground. As they drew closer, Mary could see that the pavilion was even more beautiful than she had imagined. Its columns were carved with intricate patterns of vines and flowers, and between them hung garlands of marigolds, interwoven with photographs and small personal objects. A child's toy here, a piece of jewelry there, a book opened to a beloved page. The space inside glowed with the warm light of hundreds of candles in glass holders, each flame dancing gently in the evening breeze. But it was what lay in the center of the pavilion that took Mary's breath away. There, on a table draped with white linen embroidered with golden thread, was an ofrenda, an altar unlike any she had ever imagined. It rose in 3 tiers, each level covered with offerings, plates of food that somehow remained warm despite the open air, cups of steaming chocolate, loaves of bread shaped like flowers, and everywhere, always, marigolds in abundance. But it was the photographs that drew Mary forward, her heart hammering against her ribs. There, on the middle tier, in frames made of woven marigold stems, were pictures she recognized but had never seen displayed with such care and reverence. Her parents at their wedding, young and radiant in sepia tones. Her father in his garden in India, his hands covered in soil and his face bright with joy as he held a seedling up to the camera. Her mother reading beneath a mango tree, completely absorbed in her book, unaware she was being photographed. "How?" Mary whispered, reaching toward one of the photographs but stopping just short of touching it. "Love finds a way," the woman said gently, coming to stand beside her, "even when we think it's been lost forever, even when we believe we were never loved at all." Mary's vision blurred as tears spilled down her cheeks. "But they didn't love me. They ignored me, forgot about me, left me to the servants while they lived their lives. I was nothing to them." The woman's hand came to rest on Mary's shoulder, warm and comforting as sunlight. "Oh, sweet child, is that truly what you believe?" She gestured toward the altar. "Look closer, really look." Through her tears, Mary looked again at the photographs, and this time she began to notice details she had missed. In the wedding photo, her mother wore a small pendant, one that Mary suddenly remembered finding in her jewelry box years ago, a pendant she had been told was worthless and had given away. But here, in this sacred space, she could see that it bore an engraving, a tiny seedling reaching toward the Sunday. In the garden photograph, her father held the seedling with such tenderness, such hope in his expression, and there, barely visible at the edge of the frame, was a small planted area with a tiny wooden sign. Mary squinted, and her heart nearly stopped. Though the writing was blurry with age and distance, she could just make out her own name carefully painted in her father's precise script. "He planted a garden for me," she breathed. "He planted many gardens for you," the woman confirmed. "Look." As if responding to her words, more photographs materialized on the altar. Mary's father preparing a nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow and hanging paper birds from the ceiling. Her parents shopping for children's clothes, her mother holding up a tiny dress with such delight that her whole face glowed. Her father reading aloud from a gardening book to her mother's pregnant belly, his hand resting protectively over the place where Mary grew. But why? Mary's voice cracked. Why didn't they show me this love? Why was I always alone? The woman's eyes filled with compassion. Sometimes, my dear one, people carry so much pain inside themselves that they don't know how to let love out. Your parents suffered losses you never knew about, 3 babies who came before you and couldn't stay, grief that lived in their hearts like winter. When you were born, they were so afraid of losing you too that they built walls around their hearts, thinking distance would hurt less than attachment. As she spoke, new items appeared on the altar, letters written in her mother's hand but never sent, filled with words of love and worry and dreams for her daughter's future. Her father's journal entries describing Mary's first steps, first words, the way she laughed when he made faces at her in her high chair. Photo after photo of Mary as a baby and small child, taken from a distance but filled with such longing that it was impossible to mistake the love behind the lens. "They were afraid," Mary whispered, understanding flooding through her like warm light. "They were terrified," the woman agreed. But fear never means absence of love. Sometimes it means the presence of so much love that we don't know how to hold it without breaking. Mary reached out then, finally touching one of the photographs, the one of her mother reading under the mango tree. As her fingers made contact with the glass, the most extraordinary thing happened. She could suddenly feel everything. Her mother's desperate wish that her daughter would inherit her love of books, her father's prayer that Mary would find joy in growing things, their shared hope that someday she would understand that distance had been their clumsy attempt at protection, not rejection. The love washed over her in waves, all the unexpressed affection of her parents' hearts finally finding its way to her. She understood now that every flower in her father's garden had been planted with her in mind. Every book her mother read was chosen with the hope that someday she might share it with her daughter. Their love hadn't been absent, it had been there all along, waiting for a moment when Mary was old enough and strong enough to receive it. "Thank you," she whispered to the photographs, to her parents, to the universe that had brought her to this magical place where love could finally find its voice. "There's more," the woman said softly. "Look." Mary turned to see that the altar had grown, expanding beyond just her parents' memory. There were photographs now of all the people who had loved her throughout her life, even in small ways she had never noticed. Mrs. Medlock, stern-faced but standing guard over Mary's bedroom door during a fever, refusing to leave her post. Ben Weatherstaff, carefully tending the plants Mary had started in small pots, making sure they survived even when she forgot to water them. Martha, mending Mary's clothes with extra care, adding small embroidered flowers to make them prettier. Even Senora Martinez was there, the governess who had taught Mary Spanish and had whispered stories of Dia de los Muertos during their lessons. The woman smiled as Mary noticed her picture. "She told you about this, didn't she? About the day when the veil grows thin and love can cross any distance?" Mary nodded, remembering now those whispered stories of marigold paths and glowing altars, of a night when the living and the dead could share the same space with nothing but joy between them. She said that on Dia de los Muertos we remember that love is stronger than anything, even death, that the people who love us never really leave. "Wise woman," the mysterious lady said, and she was right. "Look around you, Mary. Everyone who has ever loved you is here tonight," and they were. As Mary turned slowly in the candlelit pavilion, she began to see faces in the flickering shadows, translucent and shimmering but unmistakably real. Her parents stood together near the altar, their faces filled with the pride and love they had never known how to show her in life. Senora Martinez sat on a bench, wreathed in marigolds, beaming at her former student. Other faces she barely remembered but somehow knew. A kind cook from her early childhood who had always saved her extra sweets. A gardener who had taught her the names of flowers. A nursemaid who had sung to her during thunderstorms. But perhaps most wonderful of all, there in the circle of love, stood Martha and Ben Weatherstaff and Mrs. Medlock, still very much alive, but somehow present in this space where love transcended the boundaries of physical existence. They waved at her, their faces shining with affection, and Mary understood that this garden existed in a place where love was the only currency that mattered, where anyone who had ever cared for her could find their way. "How long can I stay?" Mary asked the mysterious woman, though part of her already knew the answer. "As long as you need," came the gentle reply. "Time moves differently here. You could stay for hours and find that only minutes have passed in your world, or you could stay for what feels like minutes and discover you've been here all night. The garden gives you what you need." Mary nodded and began to wander through the pavilion, stopping to examine each photograph, each offering, each token of love. She found baby shoes that had been saved for her but never given, toy animals that had been chosen with her in mind but never presented, birthday cakes baked in celebration of her life, even when she wasn't there to see them. Each discovery added to her understanding. She had been loved, deeply and constantly, even when that love had been expressed in ways she couldn't recognize. At one corner of the altar, she discovered something that made her gasp aloud. There, in a simple wooden frame, was a drawing she had made as a very small child, stick figures under a bright yellow sun, labelled in shaky letters, Mama, Papa, and me in the garden. She had no memory of creating it, but here it was, preserved and cherished as if it were the most precious artwork in the world. You drew that the morning before they sent you to school in England, her mother's voice said, soft as flower petals on the wind. Mary turned to see the translucent figure of her mother standing nearby, her face radiant with love. You brought it to me at breakfast, so proud of your work. I kept it all these years, carried it with me everywhere. It was in my jewelry box when I had to leave you. Mama, Mary whispered, the word feeling both foreign and perfectly natural on her lips. Her mother smiled, the expression transforming her face into something luminous and beautiful. My darling girl, look how you've grown, look how strong and lovely you've become. We may not have known how to show you then, but we have been so proud of you, every day of your life. Her father appeared beside her mother, his face glowing with the same love. The secret garden you found, Mary, that was our greatest gift to you, even though we didn't plan it that way. We wanted you to know the joy of growing things, of bringing life and beauty into the world. When I planted it originally, every seed I sowed was a prayer for your happiness. Mary felt as if her heart might burst from the fullness of it all. She moved toward her parents, not sure if she would be able to touch them, but they met her halfway, and somehow their arms were solid and warm around her. For the first time in her life, she was held by both her parents at once, surrounded by love so pure and strong that it seemed to fill every empty space she had carried inside herself. I understand now, she murmured against her mother's shoulder. I understand why you were afraid. I understand that you loved me even when you couldn't show it. And we understand now too, her father said, his voice thick with tears that sparkled like starlight. We understand that love was meant to be shared, not hidden away. We understand that we let our fears rob us of the joy of knowing you, of watching you grow, of being part of your beautiful life. They held each other in the candlelight, surrounded by marigolds and love and the gentle presence of all the others who had cared for Mary throughout her life. It felt like the healing of something that had been broken for 16 years, the mending of a wound she had carried so long she had forgotten what it felt like to be whole. After what might have been hours or moments, Mary's parents began to fade, their arms becoming lighter around her until she was holding nothing but warm air scented with marigolds. But their love remained, settled into her bones now, part of her in a way it had never been before. It wasn't just a memory, it was a physical sensation, a new kind of warmth that coursed through her veins and settled deep within her chest. It was the feeling of being home, not in a place, but in herself. The fleeting touch of their hands had imprinted a permanent, unshakable peace upon her. "Will I see you again?" she asked, as their figures became more translucent, their outlines blurring into the shimmering light of the garden. "Every time you tend a garden, every time you nurture something into bloom, every time you love someone despite your fears, "We'll be there," her mother promised. Her voice, though fading, was as clear as a bell, ringing with a love that transcended the boundaries of time and space. Mary realized her mother wasn't just talking about tending flowers, she was talking about nurturing relationships, about cultivating kindness, and about allowing her own heart to bloom with compassion. Every time you remember that love is stronger than anything else in this world or any other, we'll be right beside you, her father added, his words a steady anchor in the swirling mists of her parents' departure. He was reminding her that love wasn't just an emotion, but a force, a power that could conquer loneliness, heal old wounds, and build bridges between worlds. It was the fundamental truth of the universe, and she was now a part of it. And then they were gone, but not really gone. Mary could feel their presence like sunlight in her heart, warm and constant and unshakable. It was as if they had poured a part of their very essence into her, leaving her with a legacy of unconditional love. It was no longer something she had to seek out. It was something she now carried within her, a wellspring of strength she could draw upon whenever she felt afraid or alone. She turned to find the mysterious woman still standing nearby, watching with eyes full of tenderness. "Who are you?" Mary asked, her voice filled with wonder. "How do you know about all of this?" The woman smiled, a gesture that held the wisdom of ages. "I'm everyone who has ever helped love find its way home. I'm the part of the universe that believes no one should go unloved, that every heart deserves to know its own worth. Tonight, I had the privilege of being here when you finally understood how precious you have always been." Her words were not just an explanation, they were a profound affirmation. They told Mary that she wasn't just a forgotten child from a distant land, but a vital part of a grand, interconnected tapestry of existence. Every single act of love, no matter how small, was a thread in this cosmic fabric, and Mary's journey had just added a vibrant new color. Mary looked around the pavilion one more time, memorizing every detail, the way the candles cast dancing shadows on the marigold petals, the gentle sound of water flowing in the fountain nearby, the feeling of being surrounded by love from every corner of her life. She took a deep breath, inhaling the sweet, earthy fragrance of the flowers, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. She knew she would carry this night with her forever, this moment of understanding that she was and had always been deeply cherished. The garden wasn't just a place of magic, it was a mirror, reflecting the truth that had always been inside her. "Thank you," she said to the woman, to the garden, to the universe that had brought her here. Her gratitude was a wave, washing over her and making her feel more alive than ever before. "Thank yourself," the woman replied. "You were brave enough to walk through an unknown door. You were open enough to receive love when it finally found a way to reach you. That took tremendous courage. Mary Lennox." The woman's words resonated deeply, making Mary realize that this wasn't just a passive gift bestowed upon her. It was a reward for her own journey, her own willingness to be vulnerable and to believe in the possibility of something more. As if responding to some unheard signal, the candles around the pavilion began to dim slightly, and Mary understood that her time in this magical place was drawing to a close. But she felt no sadness at the thought of leaving. She was carrying everything she needed with her, the knowledge of love that would sustain her for the rest of her life. The lessons of the garden were not meant to be contained within its walls. They were meant to be carried out into the world. She walked slowly back along the marigold path, the flowers still parting gently before her feet. The mysterious woman walked beside her, companionable in the growing twilight. The little boats continued their gentle journey across the pond, their precious cargo of memories and love shining brightly. Mary felt a sense of purpose building within her, a new understanding of her role in the world. She wasn't just a girl who had found a garden. She was a keeper of its magic, a bearer of its truth. As they approached the door that would lead her back to Misselthwaite Manor, Mary turned for one last look at the garden. It was more beautiful than ever, the marigolds glowing like captured stars, the paper lanterns casting their jeweled light across paths that seemed to extend into infinity. It was a place of endless possibility, a symbol of the love that would now guide her every step. "Will the garden still be here tomorrow?" she asked, a small whisper of a question. "The garden will be wherever love is remembered," the woman said, "and now that you know how to find it, you'll never truly be without it again." The woman's words were a final, beautiful reassurance. Mary nodded, understanding. She stepped through the doorway back into the familiar stone corridor of the manor, feeling the temperature change from warm to cool, the solid floor beneath her feet once again. When she turned back to look through the door, she saw only a linen closet filled with sheets and towels, perfectly ordinary and unremarkable. But the scent of marigolds lingered in the air, a sweet and gentle reminder, and in her heart the warmth of her parents' love continued to glow like a candle that would never be extinguished. It was a fire that would light her way home, no matter where she was. She made her way quietly back to her room, her bare feet silent on the stone floors. The manor felt different now, not empty or cold, but full of gentle presences, full of love that had always been there, waiting for her to recognize it. Every portrait on the walls seemed to smile at her. Every shadow held comfort rather than loneliness. In her room, Mary went to her window and looked out over the grounds of Misselthwaite Manor. The secret garden was there in the distance, sleeping under starlight, and she sent it a silent message of gratitude for all it had taught her about the power of love to transform even the most barren places into something beautiful. As she climbed into bed, Mary felt a peace she had never known before settling over her like the softest blanket. She was loved, had always been loved, and that knowledge changed everything. Tomorrow she would tend her garden with new understanding, would love the people in her life more openly, would remember that every act of nurturing was a way of honoring the love her parents had always carried for her. The last thing she saw before sleep claimed her was a single marigold petal on her windowsill, glowing softly in the moonlight like a promise that love would always find a way home. And in her dreams, Mary walked again through gardens made of light and memory, surrounded by all the love that had ever been offered to her, finally understanding that she had never been alone at all. The Marigold Garden lived on in her heart, a place she could visit whenever she needed, to remember that love transcends every boundary, every fear, every misunderstanding. It was her gift from the universe, her reminder that on any night when the veil grows thin, love can bridge any distance and heal any wound. In the morning, she would wake with marigold petals in her hair and love permanently settled in her heart, ready to share both gifts with a world that needed more gardens, more understanding, and more love. But for now, she slept peacefully, cradled by the knowledge that she was precious beyond measure, held by love that would never let her go. And so we leave Mary Lennox in her peaceful sleep, surrounded by the love that had always been hers to claim. May you too rest knowing that love finds a way across any distance, through any door, into any heart willing to receive it. Sweet dreams, dear listener, and may your own gardens bloom with the memory of every soul who has ever loved you. In the garden photograph, her father held the seedling with such tenderness, such hope in his expression, and there, barely visible at the edge of the frame, was a small planted area with a tiny wooden sign. Mary squinted, and her heart nearly stopped. Though the writing was blurry with age and distance, she could just make out her own name carefully painted in her father's precise script. "He planted a garden for me," she breathed. "He planted many gardens for you," the woman confirmed. "Look." As if responding to her words, more photographs materialized on the altar. Mary's father preparing a nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow and hanging paper birds from the ceiling. Her parents shopping for children's clothes, her mother holding up a tiny dress with such delight that her whole face glowed. Her father reading aloud from a gardening book to her mother's pregnant belly, his hand resting protectively over the place where Mary grew. "But why?" Mary's voice cracked. "Why didn't they show me this love? Why was I always alone?" The woman's eyes filled with compassion. "Sometimes, my dear one, people carry so much pain inside themselves that they don't know how to let love out. Your parents suffered losses you never knew about, 3 babies who came before you and couldn't stay, grief that lived in their hearts like winter. When you were born, they were so afraid of losing you too that they built walls around their hearts, thinking distance would hurt less than attachment." As she spoke, new items appeared on the altar, letters written in her mother's hand but never sent, filled with words of love and worry and dreams for her daughter's future. Her father's journal entries describing Mary's first steps, first words, the way she laughed when he made faces at her in her high chair. Photo after photo of Mary as a baby and small child, taken from a distance but filled with such longing that it was impossible to mistake the love behind the lens. "They were afraid," Mary whispered, understanding flooding through her like warm light. "They were terrified," the woman agreed. "But fear never means absence of love. Sometimes it means the presence of so much love that we don't know how to hold it without breaking." Mary reached out then, finally touching one of the photographs, the one of her mother reading under the mango tree. As her fingers made contact with the glass, the most extraordinary thing happened. She could suddenly feel everything: her mother's desperate wish that her daughter would inherit her love of books, her father's prayer that Mary would find joy in growing things, their shared hope that someday she would understand that distance had been their clumsy attempt at protection, not rejection. The love washed over her in waves, all the unexpressed affection of her parents' hearts finally finding its way to her. She understood now that every flower in her father's garden had been planted with her in mind. Every book her mother read was chosen with the hope that someday she might share it with her daughter. Their love hadn't been absent, it had been there all along, waiting for a moment when Mary was old enough and strong enough to receive it. "Thank you," she whispered to the photographs, to her parents, to the universe that had brought her to this magical place where love could finally find its voice. "There's more," the woman said softly. "Look." Mary turned to see that the altar had grown, expanding beyond just her parents' memory. There were photographs now of all the people who had loved her throughout her life, even in small ways she had never noticed. Mrs. Medlock, stern-faced but standing guard over Mary's bedroom door during a fever, refusing to leave her post. Ben Weatherstaff, carefully tending the plants Mary had started in small pots, making sure they survived even when she forgot to water them. Martha, mending Mary's clothes with extra care, adding small embroidered flowers to make them prettier. Even Senora Martinez was there, the governess who had taught Mary Spanish and had whispered stories of Dia de los Muertos during their lessons. The woman smiled as Mary noticed her picture. "She told you about this, didn't she? About the day when the veil grows thin and love can cross any distance?" Mary nodded, remembering now those whispered stories of marigold paths and glowing altars, of a night when the living and the dead could share the same space with nothing but joy between them. She said that on Dia de los Muertos we remember that love is stronger than anything, even death, that the people who love us never really leave. "Wise woman," the mysterious lady said, and she was right. "Look around you, Mary. Everyone who has ever loved you is here tonight,